14th of August is a day where we do a reaffirmation of our faith, Tajdeed-e-Wafa, that why we got this country, why we got independence, and what was the vision of the Quaid. Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah was confronted with a wounded civilization, in the words of V.S. Naipaul, who has written a book on that, a civilization that looked back on its past, and that was a civilization that believed in nihilism, that was atavistic, and the recidivism was a threat to the Muslim political rights. Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's ideology was not complex, abstruse or esoteric. It was a very clear clinical exposition of a constitutional lawyer who believed in protection of rights of a community, which in his words was a nation in many ways, and which had a right to practice its faith, and which had a right to its socio-economic and political rights, and which were not guaranteed in an undivided India. It was a very pragmatic assessment of a constitutional lawyer based upon his judgment, and he was against this idea of ideologies which impose inequality upon the masses. There is a great deal of confusion in Pakistan about the real vision and the ideology that undergirded Quaid-i-Azam's entire struggle for a new nation. I'll start with Stanley Wolpert's quote, "Few have significantly altered the course of history. Fewer have modified the map of the world, and hardly anyone has been credited with creating a nation state." Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he did all three. So nothing encapsulates better than this quote, the whole philosophy, whole concept, whole ideology of what Quaid-i-Azam believed in. He believed in a new nation. Why? Because the Muslims as a community and as a nation, they were deprived, and he wanted, and he very correctly oversaw, and he could very clearly visualize that the Hindu majoritarian rule, that was a clear and present threat to the liberties and freedoms of Muslim community had they remained united. So the best speech that Quaid-i-Azam did, and that acts as a template for this country, to my mind, is 11th of August 1947 speech to the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan, where he said that, I'll quote selectively from his quotes to outline his philosophy. He said that the first duty of a government is to ensure the law and order, so that life, property and religious beliefs of its people are protected by the state. So see, as a constitutional lawyer with a clinical precisions, his concept was absolutely clear. It was protection of the civic rights. Now many believe that he created a new country based upon a religious ideology. Yes, the ideology was based upon a notion of universal principles of equality, egalitarianism, and Islamic concept of justice. But the ideology of Quaid-i-Azam was civic nationalism. He espoused, as a constitutional lawyer, a civic nationalism, wherein he believed, and he, I quote another extract from his same speech, where he said that you may belong to any caste or creed, that has got nothing with the business of the state. You are free to go to your mosques, you are free to go to your temples, you are free to worship, and the business of state was clearly separated from the religion. And he further explained this thing into his speech when he said that in England some time back, Roman Catholics and Protestant community, they were at loggerheads, and there were a great deal of differences, but over a period of time those differences have been sunk, and now each citizen is equal in the eyes of the law. So, you see, it was not a complex, abstruse, esoteric ideology, a very clear clinical concept of a constitutional lawyer, wherein he believed that civic nationalisms, Muslim communities, protection of rights, their political rights, their socio-economic rights would be better protected in a new country. And in the same speech, there is a line where he says that many believe that this division has created minorities and majorities, and several rights have been trampled upon, but, and these are his words, quote unquote, that the concept of a undivided India would have been a disaster. Very few people have gone through this speech, and if we parse open this speech, there are nuggets of wisdom for us. Now, why did he do this, and how his entire concept has been borne out by what is happening in India? If you see the India now, the Citizen Amendment Act and the National Register of Citizenship, the kind of reprisals, the kind of atrocities being committed, and an exclusivist agenda by misanthropic Hindus being imposed upon the Muslim community in particular and other minorities, is a clear indicator of a mindset that put the Nehruvian legacy aside and put the rabid Hindu nationalism front and center. Now, Arundhati Roy, the very well known Booker Man Prize winner and a novelist, she held forth on this concept of crisis of hatred, that just like the Jews were ghettoized and stigmatized in the Nazi Germany, the Muslims are being ghettoized and stigmatized in post-COVID pandemic phase. Just like Jews used typhus to create the detention camps and to exterminate the Jews, the Muslims are also being treated likewise. Now, look, this is the state of our country, which was founded on Nehruvian concept of secular civic nationalism, where they have gone and what they are doing in Kashmir by illegally occupying a region and trampling upon all canons of known international law. So, this betokens a very clear and prophetic vision of Harkayat, where he could discern very clearly that why Muslim community needs a new homeland. Now, coming over to another concept given in the same August 11, 1947 speech. That concept was of a campaign against bribery and corruption. He held forth, while the leaders like Nehru, they spoke like in great flourish, literary flourish about tryst with destiny, hallowed notions, not coming back to the coming down to the brass tacks. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was referring to the actual problems of the people, and he mentioned corruption, bribery, black marketing. He said that black marketing was equated to a grievous crime. It's given in the same speech. So, his notion was human security, constitutional rights, equality of citizenship, and absolute social, economic, educational, and political justice for all. And he espoused it very clearly without making any bones about the whole thing. Now, a word about his concept of economic social justice. As Thomas Piketty has very clearly said in his new book, Capital and Ideology, that whenever you want to create inequality, the ideology is put into the service. So it's a battle of ideologies, wherein Quaid-i-Azam's concept was the battle of human security. He wanted human security front and center, and that is why he very clearly espoused the concept of civic nationalism. His notions of equality before law, accountability, rule of law, justice, constitutionalism were very clearly articulated in his first address in the same speech, where he said that one of the great tasks of this Constituent Assembly, now that it belongs to a sovereign state, is the legislative business, making laws and constitution. Now, this was the vision: inclusive, pluralistic, tolerant, constitutionalism based, human security based. Now, why was it hijacked and where did Pakistan go is another story that very many people would understand by referring to Hamza Alvi's, one of the best social scientists produced by Pakistan, his notion of overdeveloped state. As per his thesis, Pakistan inherited an overdeveloped state. This was a state which had a very well developed extractive superstructure of bureaucracy, armed forces, policing, to extract the revenue. The state was everywhere, omnipresent, whereas the political parties and the political ethos and the political structure was not very well evolved. The linkage between the political parties and the people was very tenuous. As a result, the politicians, they failed to take the leadership role after the early demise of Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Had he lived a little longer, the course of Pakistan, and Pakistan as we see nowadays, would have been significantly different. Now, because of that, the constitutional norms, democracy, and the continuity of process were severed. That resulted in military interventions, into constitutional experiences, but we have come a long way. The circle has come the full, we have come a long way from that, and now the Quaid's vision should be our moving spirit, and the civic nationalism, constitutionalism, equality, justice, tolerance, inclusiveness, as opposed to the atavistic nihilism and the recidivism that is prevalent in India. That should be our credo, and that should be the way that Pakistani nation should be looking at. And that is my message for the young generation, that they should take inspiration from Quaid's example, his constitutionalism, his inclusive polity, his sense of social justice, as opposed to rabidly nationalistic, religion-based creed which is taking hold in our neighborhood in India, which is nihilistic, atavistic, and recidivism-based, which is looking at a dead past, trying to reincarnate the concepts of Hindu stratified community. And it's a very clear difference. Both the ideologies now and both the concepts which were the raison d'etre of Pakistan have been thrown in very sharp relief because of the BJP and RSS combined in India. And this puts the Pakistani founding fathers' vision into a very clear light for the young generations to follow and embrace. So, thank you.